I have been so honored to be able to have made this connection. I feel so fortunate that we've been able to make this connection, and that is with former Congressman Joe DioGuardi. Such a wealth of knowledge for us, and his sharing his perspective, his experience, his knowledge on all of these major issues, especially when they come from finance and the numbers side. I sure do appreciate it. And he's back with us today on mic, former Congressman from New York, Joe DioGuardi. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You know, Joe, there's some things going on here, and I just want to talk to you about them. First of all, I think, and I'd like your perspective on this, the more that time goes by, we realize, and I'm very disappointed that I have to say this, that the Republican leadership misled us back in July. Right now, people are talking about this morning that the House voted not to raise the debt ceiling. No, folks, they voted on a resolution because we gave up full power to stop the raising of the debt limit back in July of last year. And, you know, this is one of those things where all these deals, these perverted and convoluted deals are made, and we don't understand truly what went on. And, I mean, that's what it was last night, because if the Senate passes a resolution in support, then it's a done deal, right?
That's right. And that brings up probably the most important reason why many of those new so-called Tea Party people were elected. It was to stop borrowing, and certainly if it was going to be borrowing, what are we going to spend that money on? Where is the infrastructure in this country? I was just reading an article in the Times this morning preparing for your show, and they make a good analogy in the business section about Bain Capital, and we'll get into that, and how these leveraged buyout people use debt, and they then suck the money out. And they're making the point, well, maybe we ought to put some of these people in charge of the federal government, because debt's never been as cheap as it is now. You can borrow on 10-year treasuries at below 2%, and since inflation is higher than that, that means that we have a negative interest rate. And isn't this the time to really be borrowing and buying things? Yeah, it's time. We can borrow if we knew what to do with the money. The federal government doesn't know what to do with the money. We've become the paymaster for so many huge programs that were created mainly by the Democrats, maybe when we needed them back in the New Deal, but we've carried these things on, and that's the way President Obama thinks, that the federal government needs to continue to be the paymaster, suck the power out of the states. No, get that power back to the states, back to the localities. That's why I'm a small government conservative. As far as raising the debt ceiling, I guess the only signal, strong signal, Republicans could have sent is that no, under no circumstance are we going to raise this debt ceiling until we know what's going on and get things under control. I just read, and I have to just make this point. If you want to discuss it further, we can.
Please.
I don't want to sound like the CPA that I am, but about the financial statements of the United States of America. I wonder how many U.S. citizens know that a bill was passed in 1990 based on the bill I introduced in 1987 to bring chief financial officers to every governmental unit. But they didn't go far enough. And I had to come back in 1990 to testify before the Senate to say, you should have made these people independent. You didn't. You put them in the OMB, and when you defined who a chief financial officer is, you said they could be political appointees. Only the deputies should be qualified. So what we have in front of me right now, I'm reading the annual report, the financial statement opinion by the Comptroller General, and believe it or not, how many years later since 1990? Almost 21. They still can't render an opinion on the books of the United States of America because of material weaknesses, and they keep blaming the Department of Defense. Now, if we don't pay serious attention to our bookkeeping in Washington, how are we going to do anything else? So we really don't know where we stand. But certitude would have been, no, the debt ceiling, that's it. I'm going to, fall on my sword. No more borrowing until we know that this country's under control, and it's not under control.
Look, in the private sector, everyone knows that when things, well, even when things are good, but when things specifically, you go into a company or you're part of a company that's having problems, you cannot make informed decisions about what to do, where to go, how to meet, ongoing challenges unless you get your books straight. And that's just the way it is. And if you can't stand on that foundation, of numbers, and those numbers have been checked and rechecked, and there's credibility there, then you're just going to continue to falter and fail. And everybody knows that's why the banks, if you have a line of credit, or your banks are involved in financing in your company, they put the thumb on you. I mean, they just do. We've got to get those numbers, and we got to get them right, and then we got to keep them up to date.
Let's talk about some of those numbers. I'm looking at the financial statements as of 9/30/2011. That's the fiscal year of the United States of America, September 30th. The national debt that they list, which is the Treasury bills, and it's almost $15 trillion. 2/3 of that are held by the public, including over $2 trillion by China. And you might say, where's the other third, Joe? That's held in the so-called trust funds, which really don't exist. These are just paper entries. But $15 trillion is 100% of the gross domestic product of the United States of America. So what we're talking about is bonded debt being 100% of all the economic activity of the United States of America. And worse than that, when you add in what's off the books, the liabilities that you talk about at the state level, because they do a better job at counting, what their unfunded liabilities are than we do in the federal government, you're talking probably, and this is something we have to kind of have a guess at, probably a round number would be $50 trillion. So you're talking about a debt of over $60 trillion, which is 400% of the gross domestic product of the United States of America. And I said it on your show before, and we're complaining about Greece that has 150%.